Hello guys and girls, this is Void's What Ifs here, and this is going to be my 1K special. What if female Deku was a vigilante? And so, we're going to start off, well, as many stories do, in a hospital. As Hisashi is currently essentially stomping around the hallway, right outside of the room where currently Inko is giving birth. And now, small thing about Hisashi and Inko, they're a bit different than in the anime. Both of them are from the military. Hisashi, a prominent general who rose to the ranks, and Inko being a commander of a special forces unit. Although both of them are currently retired because, well, they're having a family. But Hisashi still has quite a few strings in both the political world and the military itself. So, yeah. And well, with that being said, now it's time for their quirks. Inko's quirk is lightning manipulation, while Hisashi's quirk is ice manipulation. Both quirks are quite strong, but simply putting it, Hisashi's ice isn't exactly as strong as, per se, Todoroki's. But yeah, and Inko's lightning, essentially, whenever she uses it, she also hurts herself, if she's not using proper gauntlets. But enough about that. As Hisashi is simply stomping away, he hears something. That something being a cry of a baby. And after that, another, and then another. As Hisashi is simply thinking, I have 3 kids. And yeah, after that, one of the nurses opens the door, and before she can even say anything, Hisashi sprints into the room. And as he does that, he sees Inko carrying all 3 of them. 2 girls and 1 boy. And now, Izumi, the name of Deku in this What If. This is her on the screen right here, although this is going to be a bit later on. But anyways, now for her siblings. This is Rain, her older brother, and then this is Arya, her older sister. Because yes, even though all of them were born at somewhat the same time, Izumi is the youngest one of them. And well, with that being said, after a couple of months, they are finally, well, released from the hospital, as all 3 of them are now a big, happy family. At least for now, that is. And well, for the next 2 years, all of them are, well, happy. Izumi, Arya, and Rain all are essentially extremely happy children. They love playing with each other and all that. But sadly, Hisashi, even though he was a prominent general, he made quite a few enemies. As one day, as Hisashi and Inko are essentially preparing dinner, that is, Hisashi is currently looking over some papers, they hear something, a silent alarm, and well, as soon as they essentially notice it, they get notified by the guards who were at their front gate, because yeah, they currently live in a mansion, and as soon as they get notified, they simply hear several thugs, gangsters, and even 2 villains are currently attacking the mansion. Now, both Inko and Hisashi leave to essentially fight them off, but they do leave 4 guards protecting the children. While they're fighting, with Inko using her lightning quirk, along with her 2 main weapons, those being 2 desert eagles. So yeah, as he essentially starts blasting, along with Hisashi using his ice quirk, we currently move on to, well, another group of villains. Or well, a villain and 4 mercenaries. Now, this villain has quite a unique quirk, It's somewhat similar to Mirio's, that being that he can go through objects, but the difference which this villain has is that he can take other people with him. And yeah, as he essentially grabs a hold of the four mercenaries, all of them enter the house. Unluckily for them, two of the guards were about to, well, go ahead and guard the front door, but that's when they see them. They immediately open fire. Now, even though his quirk does allow him to bring other people through objects, when he does that, he loses quite a bit of his own, essentially, stamina, and also it doesn't last that long. And so, as the guards essentially see them, they begin firing. And if you guys are wondering what sort of weapons they have, standard, let's just say, Glock. And there you go. As they shoot, two mercenaries fall down. The other two guards, which were upstairs at the room of, well, the children, they immediately go ahead and try to essentially get in contact with them. Sadly for them, both of the guards were shot by the other two mercenaries, who both had silenced weapons. Now, as the villain and his, well, two little pals made their way up, one of the mercenaries threw a grenade up there. Not a frag grenade, but rather a smoke grenade. Now, as that happens, the two guards are essentially, well, they can't do that much, because they don't see shit. While the mercenaries have, well, simply putting it, using some fancy goggles, they're able to see, well, through the smoke. Because, like I said, if you guys are wondering how exactly they have this sort of equipment, Hisashi was a prominent military general, and he made quite a few enemies, both with the villains, the underworld, and even some of his own pals in the army. So yeah, as both guards simply get shot. And at this point, Inko notices something, that simply putting it, the guards were supposed to contact them after about 2 minutes, and they didn't. At that point, Inko simply starts sprinting to the mansion because she figured out that something was probably wrong. Now, Hisashi sees this and he essentially calls for backup. For several police cars and several heroes also arrive at the scene. And that's when the gangsters and the villains who are at the front of the mansion actually start being pushed back. But in this time, Inko simply essentially busts open the door, and that's when she sees it. In the hallway, she sees two dead guards. And as before she's even able to, essentially take a look upstairs, she hears something. That something being someone firing a bullet at her. She quickly dodges, although not exactly fast enough, as the bullet actually enters her leg. Now, as she sees the mercenary who shot her, she gets out one of her Desert Eagles, then shoots the mercenary straight through the head. Because yeah. And after that, Hisashi, along with two other guards, which were following him, also come. But now, these guards, they're a bit more well equipped, with the two of them actually having MP5s and all that. As Hisashi simply tells them to move. And that's exactly what they do, as the other mercenary now simply comes up, shooting an LMG. Now, one of the guards gets immediately killed, while the other one gets, essentially, he currently has 4 bullets in him, but he's able to shoot the mercenary in the head as well. At that point, Hisashi goes after the villain, which, he goes after the villain. And he notices that his children are currently crying. Yeah, at this point he gets extremely worried. Now then, as he essentially busts open the door to his children's room, to his children's room, he sees that the villain has Izumi in his hands and was about to get, Rain. But before he could do that, Hisashi threw essentially ice shards at him. Yeah, At that point, the villain simply jumps through the window because he's currently saving his quirk, or usage of his quirk, for a time when he actually needs it. And yeah, as he's running away, Hisashi quickly, well, gets, how do you say it, uses his ice quirk to essentially stop the villain in his tracks. But that's when the villain uses his, well, quirk to pass through objects. And as he does do that, he quickly then immediately swaps through. That is, he, how do you say it, stops being in that sort of form, and that's what begins to run. But he can't get that far away because now Inko, even though she was shot in her leg, she could still move because, like I said, special forces, she was extremely well trained, and she simply bears through the pain. And as she is now currently at the window through which both Hisashi and the villain jumped out from, Inko gets out her Desert Eagle and shoots the villain in the leg. The villain now drops Izumi. And keep in mind that Izumi is currently 2 years old. And yeah, Izumi fell to the ground, with the one problem being that she fell to the ground with her face. Simply putting it, as Hisashi, well, then essentially starts his sprint yet again, completely encasing the villain in ice, well, not completely, his arms and legs in ice, he picks up his daughter, and what he sees, yeah, he gets extremely both horrified and essentially furious. Because what happened to Izumi? Simply putting it, both of Izumi's eyes were severely damaged, with her bleeding also from both her nose and her eyes, with her crying her balls out, that is, crying her eyes out. And yeah, after that, he simply goes to the villain spouting all sorts of insults at him, and Hisashi simply puts his hand on the villain's neck. After that, the villain stops talking, and then an icicle simply comes out of his throat. Hisashi has killed him by making ice go essentially through his body up. After that, Hisashi immediately tells Inko to call an ambulance, as one was already there, as Izumi quickly gets, well, essentially, as Izumi gets quickly taken to the hospital, and as she is there, she gets put under anesthetics and all that, as the doctors and surgeons begin the surgery. And well, with that being said, after about, I would say, an hour or so, one of the doctors comes out, as, well, Hisashi asks, along with Inko, how well is she? Or no, how is she? And that's when the doctor simply says that both of her eyes have been, well, too damaged, and they're going to, well, simply putting it, they need to be removed. Now, Hisashi is against this idea, but that's when the doctor simply tells him that what sort of damage her eyes sustained. And after that, Hisashi backs down, and he asks, is there any other way? Or is there anything that he can do to help his daughter? And that's when, well, the doctor simply says this. Well, we can contact someone to perhaps get her a pair of cybernetic eyes, or artificial eyes, as at that point Hisashi is a bit, well, skeptical, because who exactly can make a pair of artificial eyes through which that person can see through? And yeah, at that point Hisashi simply gets a click in his head, as the doctor says David Shield. Because yeah, Hisashi actually knows David Shield, but they're not friends, they're simply acquainted with each other, with one another. Because yeah, currently, well, simply putting it, David Shield actually made several prototype robots and weapons for the Japanese military. Well, also the American one, but yeah. For this one it's only the Japanese military, which is important now. And yeah, as Hisashi hears that, he immediately, well, goes ahead and actually calls for David Shield. As David Shield was currently with his daughter playing, David Shield gets, well, that is, his secretary comes into the room and tells him that he has someone on the phone. As David Shield gets up, simply takes the phone, sees that it's General Midoriya, with him being quite surprised because he thought that the general was, well, retired. And that's when he simply picks up the phone and asks, "Hello Midoriya, what might I do for you?" With Hisashi simply asking him, can he make a pair of artificial eyes? With David Shield simply going, probably. Why do you ask? Is this some sort of secret mission for the army yet again, or... That's when Hisashi simply says, no, this one's personal. We got attacked by villains, and my daughter, Izumi, I believe that, well, of course I don't know her, but simply putting it, her eyes need to be removed because of how much damage she received. That's when David simply asks, alright, how old is she exactly? That's when Hisashi says her, well, how old she is. 2 years. Well, not exactly, like 2.2 years old. But yeah. David actually, essentially putting it, he knows through what sort of, well, pain Hisashi is going through, because just like Hisashi, he also has a daughter. And yeah, at that point, David Shield simply says, I'll try my best, although I don't know when they'll be finished. With Hisashi simply telling him, thank you so much. And yeah, after all that little, well, spectacle, Izumi is after 2 weeks of, well, brought back home, with bandages covering her eyes, just so that her siblings, Rain and Arya, don't ask why Izumi has 2 holes instead of eyes. And yeah, after 6 months of her being, well, with the bandages on her face, Mr. Shield arrives, along with a suitcase which contains both, that is, it contains, well, 3 things. The first one being the 2 main parts which Hisashi ordered, those being 2 cybernetic eyes. The second was an implant which was going to be directly fused into, well, Arya's spine. That is not Arya's, Izumi's spine. Essentially that's going to be the main, well, link for her eyes. And from her spine that's going to go all the way up to her, well, brain. And then the third part is a modified, well, USB, which can be given data which can then be stored, well, inside of Izumi's eyes. Because yeah, her eyes are essentially, well, basically everything. X-ray, thermal vision, what else? Zooming capabilities, she has a targeting computer on it, and she also has access to, well, the net. So yeah, those 2 eyes are both extremely useful and, more importantly, extremely fucking expensive. But yeah, Hisashi is, simply putting it, filthy rich. And yeah, he gives the money to David and then also asks him to stay for a bit, simply so that they can get acquainted yet again. And well, at that point Hisashi and David Shield actually become, well, quite good friends. But that's when we are going to skip for about another 2 months. As Izumi is currently playing with not only her brother and sister, but also with Melissa Shield. As yeah, now all four of them know each other. And well, yeah. As all of them are playing together with David Shield and Hisashi, simply speaking about all of that stuff. And that's when also David simply brings up the fact that Izumi actually might have a IQ quirk, or essentially a quirk which makes her, well, a lot smarter. That's when Hisashi simply asks, oh, why do you think that? With, well, David simply telling him, well, for a 3-year-old, she's able to do some, well, for her age, complex tasks. And those tasks essentially being this. Izumi can talk, although sorta like at least she can talk like properly, but she can't or she doesn't know some of the larger Japanese words. And on top of that, she also knows basic math. So 2 plus 2 equals 4, 3 plus 3 equals 6. And keep in mind, this is her when she's only 3 years old. So yeah. And well, that's when Hisashi simply says, well, it is rare for, well, the chances of her gaining a completely different quirk than me and Inko is quite rare, but it's not impossible. Who knows? Maybe she does have it. And if she does have it, she might even surpass you in, well, intellect. As David simply says, I doubt that. But I guess we will see. And yeah, because currently Izumi is, well, almost as smart as Melissa, who by this time I believe that she's 5 years old. And yeah, after that little memory from the past, we jump 2 more years, essentially kindergarten years, as, well, Rain, Arya and Izumi are all, well, currently playing. And that's when Rain and, well, accidentally uses his quirk for the first time. And, well, just as he uses that, Arya uses it as well, with both of them awakening their quirks at the exact same time. And yeah, simply putting it, Inko and Hisashi take all 3 of their children to the quirk doctor. And well, as they do, that doctor simply tells them the quirks. Arya's quirk is essentially the same as her mother, Inko, although it's not, instead of being lightning manipulation, it's full-on lightning creation. And by that, I mean that you can create, well, 4 humanoid puppets out of lightning. Now, they aren't sentient, but Arya can give them commands and what to do. Her second ability is, well, she can essentially make a lightning aura around her. Essentially a thin layer of lightning which is always around her, essentially making a shield. And now, some of her other abilities also include shooting out lightning, and also being able to make, well, weapons out of pure lightning. And also one more thing, she is incredibly resilient to heat. And yeah, because, and also, I forgot to say this, she is completely immune to lightning. So if a lightning bolt was to, let's say, strike her, instead of her actually, well, gaining any damage from that, she gets powered up by quite a bit. And well, that's when we go to Rain. Rain's, well, quirk is also basically the same as his father's, although instead of ice manipulation, it's ice creation. And it's almost the same exact thing as Arya's, except one thing. Instead of making humanoid puppets, he can make puppets of animals. Although instead of being able to make only 4, he can only make 2. And along with everything is basically the same. he can create a icy aura around him, essentially giving him an extra bit of shield. Or well, shielding. But that's when they go to Izumi, as the doctor simply tells them that Izumi isn't quirkless, but she also doesn't have an IQ quirk. And that's when both Hisashi and Inko simply ask, then what's a quirk? With the doctor simply telling them that Izumi could never use her quirk. And with that, both Inko and Hisashi ask, what do you mean never be able to use it? As the doctor simply explains, well, her quirk was connected to her eyes. And I mean her biological eyes, not these artificial ones. And at that point, Hisashi and Inko simply ask him what was it supposed to be, with the doctor simply telling them, I'm not sure, but from the looks of it, it was going to be quite powerful. And yeah, after that, all of them go home. And almost, well, not the exact same day, but about 2 months later, Izumi noticed something. Her parents aren't exactly paying that much attention to her at all. I mean, Inko, her mother, she is, well, she still does care about her, but not that much. While Hisashi is at this point, well, distant, because he's mainly focusing on, well, training Rain to be a powerful quirk user, with Inko training Izumi's sister, Arya. And well, after that, we do another skip. 3 years. Izumi is 8 years old, along with Arya and Rain. And well, as they're currently going to their first, well, day of school. And as they enter, everyone is essentially showing off their quirks. Although this isn't the same school where Bakugo goes, this is in a private school. And well, sadly for Izumi, everyone simply says that she's quirkless, because what she says is that she can't exactly use her quirk because of her eyes. But at that point, all of the kids simply say that she doesn't even have a quirk, that she's quirkless. And yeah, simply putting it, Arya actually does love her, a lot. Arya loves Izumi. Rain is a bit distant, but both of her parents' situation has worsened. Inko doesn't particularly hate her, but she is distant, extremely distant. The only times she only ever speaks to Izumi is when she simply tells her to come down and eat. And even then, some of the times she doesn't even say that. And then we have Hisashi. Hisashi wanted his children to be powerful quirk users. Hell, perhaps he would get a half and half quirk user of lightning and ice. But sadly he didn't get that. And well, he mainly focused on Rain, but also focused on Arya from time to time. But Izumi, he did also focus on her, but has something a bit different. Percy, well, he was abusing her, although not physical abuse. That was only in school. He only went for, well, the emotional abuse, essentially telling her that she's useless, pathetic, that you shouldn't have even been born, and all of that. And also you guys have to realize something. Hisashi was good to Izumi all up until the way that he realized that she didn't even have a quirk. Or that she did have a quirk, she just couldn't use it. And that was also extremely hard for her, because her father and mother both started what she thought was completely hating her. With Hisashi, yes, he does completely hate her, but Inko is a bit more, well, distant to her. But yeah, as Izumi simply grows up all the way up to, well, which that is that she grew up with these 3 years being verbally abused by her father, her brother not giving a damn about her, her mother essentially the same as her brother, and her sister being the only one who truly ever, well, loved her. But even then, Hisashi would simply say to Arya, "What are you doing with that weakling?" and all that. "What are you doing with that quirkless bastard?" So yeah, Izumi didn't exactly have a, well, great life. Especially when she went to school. Because yeah, the school had a strict no bully policy, but the girls which were there, along with even some boys, they didn't give a crap about that. And well, that's when they started bullying Izuku, that is, Izumi, because she was the only one of them who didn't have a quirk. And yeah, the bullying essentially grew, well, harsher and harsher throughout her years. All the way up until, well, we go to the first day of high school. With her currently having, I believe, 12 or, wait, no, yeah, 12 years, I believe. And well, at this point, the bullying at some points goes a bit too far, with her actually having to go to the nurse's office, and one time she was even sent to the hospital. Why? Well, her arm was broken when a girl used a hardening quirk on her hand, breaking it. With Hisashi and Inko both didn't even get to the hospital, and the one who did pick her up was Arya. And well, yeah. Arya was always there to essentially stop the bullying of her sister because she still loved her. But Rain was... the only times he would get really involved was when he saw a chance for himself to look cool in front of, well, girls. Because yeah, Rain was a bit of a playboy, although, yeah. So if he saw that several girls were looking at how a couple of boys were essentially picking on Izumi, Rain would go ahead and, well, essentially beat up the bullies, while not even giving a damn about his sister, only looking for the attention of everyone around him. Because, scratch that, he isn't a playboy, he really only wants attention to become the most popular guy in school. Which is, yeah, Arya and Rain are the most popular students in the school, with Izumi being the least popular. So yeah, another reason of why Izumi thinks that quirks are truly unfair. But yeah, enough about that. Izumi, Rain, and, well, Arya, all three of them want to be heroes. Although Rain, when he heard that, he simply told to Izumi that she shouldn't even bother, that she should go into the military or something like that. But yeah, Izumi always truly only wanted to be a hero, with her favorite hero actually being, well, Snipe. Both her older sister and older brother, their favorite hero was All Might, but her favorite hero was Snipe. And nobody ever, well, that is, Rain didn't even exactly care when he was her favorite, but that's when Arya simply asked her, "Why was Snipe your favorite hero?" And that's when Izumi simply says, "He uses a gun." With Arya being a bit confused by this, that's when Izumi simply says that, well, I am not exactly physically fit, but hey, I can at least shoot a gun to be a helpful hero, right? With Arya simply saying, well, yes, but you would need to get some proper training for that. Which then Izumi proceeds to do. Because even though her parents don't like her, everyone else around the entire mansion, being the maids, the butlers, along with the security there, all of them actually, well, quite enjoy having Izumi, well, as their company. Because even though she's extremely shy in school and also tiny bits of depressed at times, when she's at, well, home, or at least with actually Arya or the maids, butlers, and security guards, she is quite happy. And well, for the first time when she was 13 years old, the head security chief, which was at their house, actually, well, sort of began to teach her how to properly shoot. And well, this essentially went from shooting airsoft guns, like pistols and all that, and well, all the way to shooting actual bullets from a pistol. And yeah, with the head of security actually being quite surprised, because yeah, Izumi had a natural talent for, well, guns and shooting and all that, essentially marksmanship. As with a pistol, she was able to get, well, dead center hits on 3 targets, with each target being further removed, that is moved, by 50 meters. So yeah, Izumi was able to shoot a target right in the center, well, from a distance of 150 meters with a standard pistol. So yeah, the security guard, or well, chief, was actually quite surprised about that. But he said that Izumi had a bright future if she was gonna go in the police corps or the military corps. But Izumi wanted to be a hero. And that's when she asked if she could borrow, or take some of the airsoft guns. With, well, the soldier simply saying, "Yes, you can, this is yours after all." As Izumi takes that and, well, begins tinkering, because she has 2 talents. One of them being for marksmanship and the other one being, well, exactly how smart she is. She can create her own gadgets, and also always in her head there's something going on, because her grades in school are straight A's. Every single test is an A. So yeah, currently in the school she is the smartest, with Arya being the second smartest and Rain being, well, somewhere in the middle. That is not in the middle. He was still quite high ranking at being the number 7 spot, but yeah, Izumi was the smartest by a lot, with Izumi always being able to get a 100% on her tests, with Arya somewhat being able to get 89% to 93%. So yeah, Izumi was quite smart. And well, as she took all those airsoft guns, along with a couple of other things, she started, well, making something. And after 2 weeks of working on it, she was able to, well, essentially create a, well, something similar to an Uzi, although the only differences were, well, this. It could only shoot semi-automatic, and it, well, it didn't shoot bullets. It it was essentially primarily made to shoot out specialized made projectiles. Not bullets per se, but rather the same things which tasers have. So, yeah. And this gun, or pistol, shall we say, can hold up to 24 of them. Yeah, with Izumi being rather proud of her achievement, she takes it, well, that is no, she then begins to work on some of her other projects, those being smoke grenades and tear gas, with her actually being able to make it in, well, her own house or mansion. And that's when she sort of takes the gas or the smoke grenades along with the tear gas to her father to simply, well, see if he would like them. Because yeah, she still does love her father and actually wants him to be proud of her. But he's actually always, well, he always either dismissed her or simply took her gadgets, threw them on the ground and then broke them, or simply threw them in the trash. With this time being, well, essentially the same. as Hisashi throws her gas, that is tear gas grenades, into the trash, and he takes the smoke grenades and simply also throws them in the trash. And yeah, Izumi is severely demoralized by this, and also even further, well, falling into quite a bit of depression. And, well, she actually takes her gun, or, well, essentially a glorified taser, to school. And, well, that day in school, when she went there, Arya was somewhere else with her club, because, yeah, essentially outdoor activities, while Rain was skipping school. And Izumi was left all alone. And in that exact moment, as she entered the classroom, she got pinned to the wall, or, well, essentially got thrown to the corner, as the girls, who were, if I may say this, quite a bit older than her. She was currently, I believe that I said, actually wait, I didn't say crap. She's currently 15 years old, by the way, so you guys know. So essentially, she goes to, I believe, the 7th grade? Yeah, the 7th grade, I think. It's a bit weird how the Japanese do it, but yeah. Simply putting it, she gets pinned to the wall and then, well, gets smacked down. As all of the girls essentially start laughing at her, spitting at her, and then they begin to kick her. As one of them actually uses a sort of hardening quirk on her foot and then slams it right into, well, Izumi's face. At that point, Izumi is hurt quite a bit, with blood actually coming out of the wound, which that girl made. That's when a couple of the girls simply said that's enough, but the girl who, well, kicked Izumi in the face was still going at it. At this point, Izumi reached out for her bag, and she took something out of it. As at this point, the girl who was bullying Izumi simply stops kicking her, and looks at what she thinks is a toy gun. And at that point, exactly as she essentially says another insult to Izumi, which is going to be followed by a kick straight into her nose, Izumi fires one of the darts, although she forgot to change it, because she essentially shot her with, well, the volume being completely filled, so essentially it was an extremely powerful shock. And yeah, after that, the girl which was bullying her simply falls to the ground, with all of the other girls now screaming. At that point, one of the teachers, which was currently in the hallway, simply sees Izumi running out of class. Although with that being said, Izumi did take both her bag and her gun, as she's currently just, well, running throughout the school. And the teacher noticed that she had something in her hand, something which looked, well, quite alike like a gun. That's when the teacher simply enters the classroom, and she sees the female student laying on the ground, motionless, with all of the other girls essentially cowering in fear. And at that point, she calls the police, because she put 2 and 2 together, and yeah, Izumi was the one who shot her. As both the police get notified, and then the police notify a couple heroes, and then the police notifies Izumi's parents. As Inko and Hisashi's phone starts to ring, he picks it up, sees that it's in the police, as he simply says, "What exactly are you calling me here about, Chief?" Because yeah, this was the chief of the police. And yeah, that's when he simply tells him, "Your daughter is presumed to have shot a student in school." Now, this was on speaker, so yeah, when Inko heard this, she essentially jumped out of her chair and said, "Shit, what?" And yeah, after that, it sort of went out of control, as at this point, Izumi was running throughout the city. As well, the police were just getting notified about what had happened. And as Izumi essentially runs, well, through a street, she bumps into someone. That someone being a policeman. Now, this policeman actually helps Izumi up and tells her to not run that fast. But then he gets something, a notification on his mobile phone. As he takes it out and simply, well, scrolls through, he hears a message that a student was killed, although she really wasn't killed, she's currently just unconscious, was killed in, let's say, a random school in Japan. The same school where Izumi goes. And that's when Izumi sees her, well, picture. The picture of her simply pop up. At that point, the policeman actually, well, figures out that he just helped a presumed murderer. As he goes for his gun, and just as he turns around, he gets shot 3 times by Izumi. Although, this time, she didn't change it still. And the policeman actually dies, as his heart just completely fails. And now, after that, Izumi actually gets a bit scared and then starts running. Although the way she was running was, well, somewhat different. Because she was actually going back to her mansion. And well, the simplest reason being this. She went, as she got to her mansion, she sneaked past several of the guards. She knew where the alarms were and all the cameras, so yeah, she quickly entered her room, which was on the first floor. As she went in it, she threw her bag on the floor, got a duffel bag, essentially stuffed it with spare clothes, as when she was also there, she quickly changes into, well, something appropriate. That simply being a black hoodie, black jeans. She also gets, well, essentially a mask and sunglasses on, with her putting all of her, well, hair behind her. That is, instead of her hoodie. As after that, she takes her duffel bag, and then she takes something, well, underneath her bed. That something being a place where you can store guns. As she opens that up, she sees what's inside of that. That something being just like here on the picture, and an AK-12, along with 4 mags and an extended grip, along with a holographic sight. And yeah, after she essentially sees that everything is there, she puts the gun or the entire suitcase in her duffel bag, along with essentially provisions, that being like, let's just say that she was actually preparing for this moment, because yeah, she wanted to escape from the mansion, because yeah, the only one who actually showed her any sort of love was, well, her sister. And at that point, she hears someone trying to open the door. That someone was actually, well, one of the security guards. And yeah, not one of the security guards, but rather one of the police was already inside the mansion. As he actually simply goes out for Mr. Hisashi and tells him that the room is locked. With Hisashi simply yelling out, "Wait, what? That's not supposed to be locked. It was unlocked when I checked it last 2 hours ago." At that point, Hisashi is simply looking for the key to open the door. And yeah, Izumi set something up. That being, she takes, well, not a frag grenade, but essentially something which she created yet again. That being, well, simply putting it, a more powerful flash grenade. As she puts it right in the middle of her bed, and then puts a timer on it. In exactly 30 seconds, it was gonna go off. And yeah, but before she turned it on, she went ahead and actually took something. That something being several of the custom-made USBs, well, which can be directly inserted into her spinal cord, or well, the thing on her neck. And yeah, as she takes that, she, well, simply putting it, takes those USBs, throws them in the duffel bag, and after that, well, she jumps out of the window. Although she jumps out right next to a security guard. Now, that guard has heard what exactly Miss Izumi did. As before he can even say a word, Izumi, simply putting it, gets out her gun, which has the electric, well, projectiles in it, and doesn't shoot him. She uses it and then with the buttstock of the gun, simply punches it right into his neck, with the security guard being completely knocked out. As he falls to the ground, Izumi notices something. She is currently being viewed by a camera. As yeah, she didn't know that her father had actually installed multiple cameras around her room. And yeah, before anything, she simply goes ahead, takes the pistol which the security guy had, along with 2 mags, and she starts running away. And at that point, several police, who were, well, currently at the mansion or outside of the mansion, simply see someone running away. They don't know who it is, but they for sure know that it's not one of the security guards, and that it's definitely not one of the policemen. As they simply tell Izumi to stop. At that point, the police which were waiting outside of her room, as well, Hisashi opens up the door. And as soon as he does, the 30-second countdown, which was on the, well, simply putting it, flash grenade, goes off. Now, this blinds Hisashi and the 3 policemen which were with him for about, I would say, 20 or so minutes. So yeah, it's a powerful flash. And after that, it's quite loud, as all the policemen just simply hear that. And yeah, before they can even react, Izumi throws another one of her gadgets. That being tear gas. As she does that, the 4 policemen which were there, well, start tearing up, with them not being able to shoot properly. And at that point, the security guards, which there was about 20 of them stationed at the mansion, also get notified. As they also, well, start running towards Izumi. Izumi, well, essentially goes behind the mansion at this point. And yeah, behind the mansion there's actually a river which flows through it. Or well, not through it, but like right next to the mansion. And yeah, Izumi does a leap of faith, as she jumps right into the river. Now, the security guards who were following her simply stopped there, because they just saw that she, well, jumped in the river. And yeah, with that being said, now at the place where the policeman was, the first policeman she accidentally killed, there are several heroes there. Three heroes which are just going to be staying unnamed, and Eraserhead. As Eraserhead asks one of the unnamed heroes to simply tell him how exactly is the policeman looking, with that hero telling him that this policeman is dead, with Eraserhead simply asking, what? And yeah, at the exact same point, the other hero sees that the policeman was shot by the same darts which were used to knock out the girl in the school, as then Eraserhead puts 2 and 2 together. This was Izumi Midoriya. And yeah, simply putting it, at that moment Izumi gained a new crime she had committed, with actually killing someone. And then she also gained several other ones, or for, how do you say it, using a flashbang on the police, knocking out a security guard and all that. But she really doesn't give a shit, because she's currently, well, floating down a river. And yeah, she can't swim, and she's currently holding onto her duffel bag. Although the fall, which, well, she took, sort of knocked her out, but she's currently like I said, holding onto her duffel bag. And yeah, as she is just currently going to the water, someone, well, jumps into the river and, well, simply putting it, picks her up along with the duffel bag. Now, this man had black hair and he also had knives everywhere. And if you guys are wondering, yes, this is going to be Stain. Because, simply putting it, yeah, Stain just saved Izumi, and after a couple of hours, Izumi wakes up in a place where she has got no clue where she is. Simply putting it, it's a cave. Izumi, well, looks around, she doesn't see her duffel bag anywhere, and that's when Stain simply says, "Looking for this?" As Izumi turns around and sees Stain just sitting on a chair right next to her duffel bag, along with her stun gun, her pistol, along with all of her, well, gadgets. Along with the USBs, although they're currently in the duffel bag, so yeah. As Stain simply asks her, "Why exactly did you jump into the river?" As Izumi says, running away, with Stain then well, simply responding, "I'm gonna need you to be a bit more clear." With Izumi saying that she's currently running away because she accidentally killed one of her classmates, and probably a policeman as well. At that point, Stain, simply is pondering a tiny bit, because he already saw what was in the duffel bag, in an AK-12 with 5 mags and all of that, and that's when he simply asks her, "What exactly were you planning to do with this?" As Izumi simply says, "I know that it's a bit stupid because of what I just did, but I wanted to be an underground hero." Because, simply putting it, underground heroes are essentially illegal heroes like vigilantes. So yeah, or that being, no, she wanted to be a vigilante, not an underground hero, because I believe they're actually still heroes with a proper license. But yeah, as Stain hears that, he simply asks her, "Well then, what exactly makes a hero?" As Izumi simply tells her own view on heroes. That heroes are here to protect the weak, and also to maintain order. And well, that's when Stain simply asks her, "And what would you be willing to do for this order and peace?" With Izumi simply responding, "Anything." And that's when Stain asks her, "Even kill someone?" With Izumi responding, "Yes, even kill someone." And at that point, Izumi can see a huge grin on Stain's face. As Stain gets up and then throws the duffel bag, well, to Izumi, simply telling her to get some new clothes on, with Izumi asking him, "Wait, aren't you, what are you gonna do?" With Stain simply responding, "I'm gonna train you," putting it rather simply. I always wanted a sidekick. With Izumi being confused, but hey, she doesn't have any other options. The police are after her, the heroes are after her, and this guy, he doesn't, well, he seems like a villain, but oh well, she doesn't have anything else to do. And plus, she just asked her what are her views on heroes. And that's when she asks Stain for who exactly is he, with Stain responding, "The hero killer Stain." Now, Izumi simply, well, was worried, but isn't anymore, because she has a sort of the same ideology as Stain, about the fake heroes, those who are only in it for money and fame. And like that, I'm going to be ending off the video here. If you guys and gals enjoyed, be sure to subscribe and like.